Welcome back to the Ophel Excavations. I'm here with Dr. Orit Peleg-Barkat. Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
I'm sure it is your pleasure because you're here to discuss just a really important discovery from just yesterday and the final, 3 days before the excavation season ended?
Always happens that you find the most interesting stuff just on the last day when you're cleaning the area for the photo shooting. And indeed, this marvelous piece was found yesterday when cleaning down a Byzantine period wall. So this stone was incorporated in secondary use into that wall. But as you can see, it is exquisitely decorated, and it dates back to the time of King Herod, to the late Second Temple period.
So we're going back 2,000 years, and obviously people can see the rosettes or the flower designs here on it. What is this, though? Where did it belong before we start talking about maybe some more of the detail?
Okay, so this piece, it's not a cornice, it's not a frieze, actually it's a ceiling. So this is the decorated, what we call soffit. So you need to imagine that it stands right above our heads and you're looking up in order to see it.
Okay.
And in the late Hellenistic, but mostly early Roman period, they started to have these ceilings that were divided into geometrical panels, rectangulars, diamond shapes, circles, triangles, all kinds of panels with this very typical border. And inside those panels there were, so in the Roman world you would find also mythological scenes and other animals, human beings, but also flowers. And here in the early Roman period, actually already before, from the Asmoneans onward, there is an abstention from depicting human figures. So we have normally just floral and geometric designs.
And so this is on the ceiling. It was found in secondary use, as you were saying, inside a Byzantine period wall, so maybe 400 or 500 years after this was actually constructed. And so speak about the location in which the general area where we are, the excavations, and this general area and what was happening at the time here for the building that this could have belonged to.
Okay, so this is one of the nicest pieces that we have found, but along the various expeditions that worked here at the Ophel, south of the Temple Mount, more than 200 fragments of such decorated ceilings from the early Roman period were found. And they were found either at the collapse right below the southern wall of the Temple Mount or at the southern part of the western wall. But mostly they were found incorporated into later walls, mostly from the Byzantine and Umayyad
So nothing's
periods.
been found?
So nothing was found in situ, unfortunately. The only in situ decorated ceiling that we have from this area is not a straight, flat ceiling as we see here, but we have domes, shallow domes that decorate the vestibule behind the double gate. So there was a passageway going up from the double gate to the platform surrounding the temple area.
So you have actually joined the excavation or the expedition this season as the co-director. Last year you weren't with us, but you're not fresh to this area, you're not new to this area because you've studied this area perhaps more than anyone regarding this very thing, correct?
Yes, so I feel this is my second home. As a young student, already in my undergraduate studies, I joined Dr. Ilat Mazar when she started her immense project of publishing her grandfather's excavations here.
Who excavated here back in the 70s mainly?
Yes, between 67, 68 and 78. So I started just working on technical things, since there has been a long period between the end of the season, the excavations, and the time that we started working on the publication. Some of the finds were, were out of the boxes, so we had to sort them out. But then slowly I started to help a lot with description of the structures, the stratigraphy, the architecture, published some pottery, and luckily she thought I was okay. So gradually I got like more important assemblages to publish. And eventually for my PhD, a lot allowed me to work on the most important part of or one of the most, surely the nicest assemblage from the excavation, and that is the 500 fragments of architectural elements from the early Roman period.
Bits of building from the early Roman period,
yes.
Which is when this whole area experienced just a transformation, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. When the Temple Mount was expanded southwards, and new streets, new entrances, gates, staircases, all of this was being built in this area. And I mean, I've studied also for publication finds from Herod's palaces at Jericho and Herodium and other places, but surely you can see from the architecture decoration that the best artists and probably also much more funding was invested in this area. So this was the crown project of King Herod.
Perhaps we can talk a little bit about how you would describe some of these images or motifs on there. How would you? There's obviously variance between them. They're not all the same. These were crafted by a single person is crafting each one of these and trying to replicate them, or how do you think they were crafted? Okay,
so first of all, in terms of like the style of the Herodian architecture fragments or Herodian art, we have to remember, as I said before, that from the Hasmonean onwards, there was an abstention, and like Jewish norm was not to depict human figures,
right,
nor animals. But also, this went one step further, in that they even didn't try to create something that is three-dimensional.
Okay.
So everything was just everything here is very delicate. It's very high quality, very accurate. Everything is done probably with a compass, with a ruler. The artists that were responsible for creating this knew what they were doing, but they were not trying to create here like an image of a real flower.
Okay.
So because we never see a flower, or rarely do we see a flower from profile. Always we see the flower from above, from top.
Okay.
So we call them rosettes. They are all different. Since this is such a limited repertoire, only floral motifs and geometrical patterns, then they tried not to repeat themselves. So they tried to have each flower look a little bit different. These two seem quite similar, but otherwise they try not to make them all similar, because then it's a bit boring. But you cannot really, have a botanic identification. So this is that flower,
okay.
and this is.
It's more of a generic.
Exactly, it's more of a like artistic formula.
Representation of what they think.
Yeah, of just general flower.
So, where did it come from? Do you have any thoughts? We're excavating. Obviously, we're trying to get down to an area D, a monumental structure from the period
of
when this was in a building. Obviously, we don't know where it came from. It's close to that. It's on top of that. Is this too grand for the building that we have, or is it from? What's your opinion?
Yeah,
what's your
well,
opinion?
we will have to wait and see. We only have the facade of the building, which is very promising. It's ashlar built, very massive, wide entrances. So, you can't rule out that this could come from this could be the soffit of just the lintel
like
of one
doorway?
of one of the doorways, but this is very hard to say. So since we have so many fragments of these, clearly at least some of them were found really in the collapse. So at least some of them come from the temple.
From the Temple Mount.
Yeah, some of them come from the Temple Mount itself. Since they are very heavy, they could not have roofed a large building. So they usually such ceilings come from small rooms, like 3 meters wide at the most, or a little bit more, but not more than that, because otherwise then the stones would crack and break. So they could come from entranceways, from the gates to the Temple Mount, either from the gates above Robinson's Arch, maybe from the we don't know how. So we have the passageway below the double gate, but we don't have the original passageway of the triple gate. Was it also roofed with domes?
Which is very close to.
Yeah, which is just a few dozen meters to the northwest of us. So it could have come from those entranceways. It could have come from stairwells at the towers and the corners of the Temple Mount. And it could have come from smaller rooms within the royal portico, or that stood at the southern flank of the Temple Mount, or just at the edges. So we have similar such ceilings in other buildings, mostly connected with Temene or cultic centers, but not in Judea. So in Herod's palaces or in nice buildings in Petra, we have similar ceilings, but they are made of plaster. So they are much more light and easily made, and of course much cheaper. But in Jerusalem, and just we have smaller sections of ceilings in some of the tombs in the necropolis of early Roman Jerusalem, but not these grand. And we have several, few examples in the upper city, but they may have come from here. Otherwise, the only assemblage that we have is here, and there are a few that were found north of the Temple Mount, that like in the pool of Bethesda, near St. Anna Church. And there are a couple more that are housed now in the Franciscan Museum that also are said to have come from the northern area of the Temple Mount. So we should imagine maybe they come from other gates, or from the towers, or from the Antonia Citadel, or somewhere close. But these mark the Temple Mount area.
So just finally, I mean, we all like to hear about how this rates compared to others. Is this the most complete version in the whole Ophel area that's ever been discovered, as far as what you can recall?
So we have larger pieces. I think the largest is now exhibited in the Tower of David and the museum near Jaffa Gate. So this is clearly not the largest, but it has the greatest number of panels. So, and this is important because since they are all made of different shapes, it is very hard to reconstruct them. So I have almost 100 fragments of just borders. Sometimes I have the meeting point, sometimes I have just the border, so it is impossible to reconstruct the entire ceiling. But once I have this pattern, I can replicate it and try to reconstruct the entire ceiling. So this is really important.
So this is going to go from the site, if we can get it, to Hebrew University. I'm sure
Yes.
that's where it's going to go. Maybe to your office.
I'm not sure I have room for this. Yeah, but to the laboratory.
And then it's going to be studied, and you're going to go about in the future sometime
Sure.
seeing what you can make out of it.
Yeah, of course.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time. I'm glad we have the
welcome.
expert on site here on the dig for when this is found.
Yeah, it was worth coming.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Welcome.